Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and starting off our discussion with welcoming our guest, Dr. Mahmoud Roushdy, the banking expert and lecturer at Cairo University. Dr. Roushdy, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to say good evening to you and our audience. And I would like to take the chance to congratulate the Egyptian nation for the memory of the 30th of June revolution.
Yes, for sure. And actually, marking today marks the 7th anniversary of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi being in office. Now, before we start delving into the details and the different files and the different sort of achievements in different sectors, how would you describe or view or assess those 7 years in office since day one up until now? How do you assess it? How do you view?
Actually, I would like to start my conversation with one of our Arabic idioms, which currently we are bearing the fruits of the 7 years. Actually, we are bearing the fruits in different sectors: economic sector, legal sector, the infrastructure, in many sectors, digital transformation, FDI, in many monetary system. Many sectors, actually. Which one would you like to start?
Well, I want to start with something that we discussed the last time you were here on the show. We spoke of the mega projects, and the national mega projects seem to be one of the main ways to really take the country and the Egyptian economy forward. Started off with the expansion of the Suez Canal, then started off working on establishing new cities, the new Alamein city, the Mansoura city, the new Delta, the administrative capital, many things. How would you view this strategy, this approach to really take a leap within the Egyptian economy through these national mega projects? And as you've mentioned, working on the infrastructure, building many airports, really modernizing our maritime ports, working on the roads and the bridges, the highways, everything. How do you view this sort of leap in infrastructure, new cities, mega projects for the Egyptian economy?
Actually, Hani, as you said, that there are many mega projects that positively impact the economy, and it help us to bring FDI, like the capital, the new capital, in addition to Canal Suez extension, in addition to the new museum, in many fields. But actually, let's go back one step. Before doing that, there is a brave decision which the government and the President Sisi took it in 2016, which is the devaluation. This is the most bravest, in my humble opinion, decision.
Yes.
Actually, they did that to the objective of economic reform. Actually, what you are saying concerning the mega projects, everything, those are the harvests of the economic reform or the devaluation.
Yes.
Sorry. Actually, I would like to start with the economic part, due to that all that you mentioned are the harvest of this. Actually, I would like to go back in 2016, after the devaluation, the inflation rate reached to 36%, as far as I recall, and now the inflation rate is 5%. We don't have, the government don't have, or the President Sisi don't have the magic stick. Actually, we did a great job, the government and the leadership, to reach this inflation rate and the unemployment rate. How they did this? First, as I told you, the devaluation. After that, they played with the interest rate. The Monetary Policy Committee, the central bank, played with the interest rate to absorb the liquidity in the market. Actually, to decrease the inflation, they increased the interest rate. In addition to to neutralize the impact of de-dollarization. We have a long-term pain from the FX rate. What they did, they increased the interest rate to let people go away and think we shouldn't invest in foreign currency. We have to return and convert our money into local currency. The foreign currency is considered as a commodity, as anything. It's not a store of value anymore. This is the first thing. They increased the interest rate, and they played in a professional way, actually. Why in a professional way? They do the inverted yield curve. Let me to explain to our audience the inverted yield curve. Actually, the inverted yield curve, that if we have a positive outlook in a short term or middle term, the interest rate, we shouldn't pay a long-term interest rate for 10 years or whatever, because our economy will be more stable and we will have a positive outlook. For that, they give an interest rate for short term for the sovereigns, despite the fact the long term is lower in interest rate. By this way, they decreased the cost, the debt cost. The debt cost decreased in the last 3 years by, as far as I recall, 20% from the GDP. Those are the disclosed numbers. By those things, in addition to the financial inclusion, when they increased the interest rate, they almost double the deposits that in the banking industry, which is, it was, as far as I recall, 2.5 trillion. Currently, it's 5.5 trillion.
Almost doubled.
Yeah, it's almost doubled. Those actions, which leads, in addition to the new law, the investment law, the new banking law number 194 for 2020, many things they did it to reach this point and to invest in mega projects. And this lead, in addition to the mega projects, to invest to attract the FDI.
Yes. Well, you've mentioned the bravery of the government and the presidency to make these decisions, the devaluation, also lifting the subsidies, really working on reforming the taxation system, working on the establishing and building the electrical power plants, the biggest 3 in the world, working on the power outages that were taking place before those 7 years. All of these things, how brave and fruitful were they to be in the economic situation that we are witnessing right now?
Actually, you hit a nerve, especially concerning the subsidy. We are paying for a long time that the subsidy is not going to the correct people or the low-income people. You know that well, and the majority of our audience know that for a long term. I believe that what happened in last 7 years, sorry, the government tried to allocate the subsidy for the people who deserve that by doing, for example, the program of Takaful and Karama. This program, it served around 2.5 million family, which cover around 10 million people. The Ministry of Solidarity is financing that in a professional way, actually. All of those things, in addition to the economic reform, lead to this. You are now allocating the subsidy to the people who deserve that. Why I'm riding XY luxurious car, I shouldn't say the name, it will be an ad, luxurious car, and I take a fuel, I take a subsidy on my fuel. This is not the right approach. Globally, this is not the right approach. Those quick wins or quick win actions, it helps to recover and to have a speedy recovery and go forward. And this is reflected on our inflation rate. As I told you, we reached to 5% inflation rate, despite the fact we come from 36% inflation rate. The unemployment rate, it's almost 14%. Currently, it's around, as far as I recall, 7%, something like that. You could realize easily the differences in different sectors. And actually the investment in the infrastructure, the technology, many things that reflected on the nation.
Yes, well, you're saying all of these things, and a lot of the Egyptian citizens were really skeptical when these decisions were made, the devaluation of the Egyptian pound, lifting the subsidies, all of these things. Nobody knew exactly if the value of the Egyptian pound will continue to fall, but now it's way better than it was 7 years ago since the devaluation. A lot of people were not sure where all these decisions are taking us, but so far it seems that the Egyptians have built that sort of trust in the leadership. Also, one factor was the factor of time. Now, the president is well known that if something's going to take 10 years, he wants them in 3. If something's going to take 5 years, he wants them in a year and a half or 2 years maximum. How effective has this been to bear the fruit, as you're saying, in terms of economic achievements?
Actually, now we are bringing the fruit of that, as let me quote you, as you said, currently, now. Actually, if we divide the sectors, we talk about the economic sector. I would like to talk about the education sector, and I would like to talk about the external affairs, many things. If, for example, if I took one of the most important things, which is, in my humble opinion, which is the education part, actually our research, higher education and scientific research budget jumped from 40 billion to reach 65 billion. The growth rate actually is 65%. This is one of the things that we are gaining the harvest. The normal one in the street can realize this easily. The number of public universities, actually we increased by, as far as I recall, 4 universities to reach 27 public university, in addition to 188 new programs for multidisciplinary, serving the needs of the labor market. 3 technological universities start to work in many fields. This is one of the most crucial things, the education. If you would like to build a nation, focus on 2 things, which is the president actually doing now: the health and the education, in addition to what he is doing in the infrastructure to get FDI and create more job opportunities, actually.
Well, we will definitely talk about health and education a little bit later, but before we start turning into these sectors, one of the main sectors that seemed to really flourish over the past 7 years was the energy sector. And it started off, it seemed to stem from the discovery of the natural gas in the Mediterranean, the Zohr gas field. And then the president worked on renewable energy, solar energy, building all these electrical and renewable energy and solar energy power plants. How did the discovery of the natural gas in the Mediterranean and really building all these power plants really change Egypt economically, not just for Egyptian, but also in the eyes of the international community, seeing it as a potential hub for energy, a fertile soil for investments in that sector?
Actually, I believe it's one of the most crucial things that you have to invest in energy. If you would like to increase the economic indicators, you have to do that and get the FDI. And this was a positive signal to the global community that we are investing in the energy side. And this is get more FDI for the country. We heard 2 years ago or 3 years ago, as far as I recall, that many multinational companies would like to come to Egypt and to invest to benefit from the the fuel and the discoveries that happened a couple of years ago. In addition to, there's a smart thing that the government is trying to go for the solar energy and many energies to actually, this is one of the most important things that globally the most of the developed actually countries are focusing on, to decrease the carbon footprint actually for people. I believe this is one of the most important things. To invest in energy, it will harvest so quickly, and this is considered one of the quick actions.
And it is one of the sustainable development goals that Egypt is going for and looking to achieve by 2030, also including the green energy. Something that you've pointed out to earlier in terms of the economic sort of revival for Egypt was the process of financial inclusion and the digitalization of the whole governmental system, all the administrative work. Now, how challenging was this, and how far do you think we've come into the transition, the transformation into the digitalization age?
Actually, one of the most important thing is to invest nowadays in the infrastructure or the technology part. This will reflect directly on the economic. As you know, and our audience know, the GDP structure consists of main three parts, which is the industry, the agriculture, and the services. One of the most important things to have a good GDP is to change the structure of your GDP. Instead of depending on agriculture or industry, you have to depend mainly on services. The added value for this is quite high. And nowadays, as you mentioned, part of the most important things to go for cashless society, which is the financial inclusion. After the deval and the CBE, Central Bank of Egypt, and the government successfully doubled almost the deposits portfolio for the household segment, actually, by putting interest rate, and they attracted new to bank, and number of the customers almost doubled, reached, as far as I recall, I believe 30 million customers, banking customers. This is a quite great number. In addition to investing in smart wallets and focusing on this to facilitate the life. Nowadays, you are entering to a grocery and you are asking about the POS machine, and the government took the initiative to issue a Visa card. It's one of the most brilliant solutions that will force the nation, the Egyptian, to go digital and choose the cards instead of cash. This is one of the most important things. And by the way, there's a coordination between the different institutions, governmental institutions in the country. They are working together. For example, when there's an initiative for Visa, the government, the Ministry of Finance, actually they create a law to penalize people if you are paying in cash and don't use your card. Actually, this is you will be penalized around 5 or 10% of the amount, something like that. But there is a great coordination between all the sectors in the government and all the financial let me tell, financial sectors like central banks and non-financial sectors, and the social community to increase awareness.
Yes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, those were 7 years so far, and Egyptians are still aspiring for more. Now, Egypt has As Dr. Roushdy mentioned, Egypt has gone through a lot of efforts to revitalize and modernize the country. Let's check out this report and we'll be right back.
Egypt marked on Tuesday 7 years since President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has taken office on the 8th of June of 2014. The Sisi graduated from the Egyptian Military Academy in 1977, then served in the infantry. Like other Egyptian officers of his generation, he advanced through military ranks to command a mechanized infantry division and then served as the commander of Egypt's northern military region. In 2010, he was appointed to the post of the Director of Military Intelligence. Following the resignation of Hosni Mubarak as president in 2011, Sisi was the youngest member of the Supreme Council of the Armed Forces, which took over the governing of Egypt. He was elevated to the positions of Defense Minister and Commander of the Armed Forces in August 2012, when then-President Mohamed Morsi promoted Sisi to the top position. President Sisi took center stage in Egyptian politics in the summer of 2013 after a protest movement dubbed Tamarrud or rebellion emerged demanding that Morsi be removed or replaced through an early election. On June 30th, demonstrations against Morsi had reached huge momentum. On July the 1st, Sisi issued an ultimatum to Morsi to resolve the crisis within 48 hours or face intervention. Morsi offered some negotiations but refused to step down or agree to early elections. Facing continued opposition from the Brotherhood, Sisi called on Egyptians to rally in support against violence and terrorism. On July the 26th, hundreds of thousands of Egyptians across the country heeded the call and took to the streets to show their support. Sisi found significant political support amongst Egyptians who were exhausted by 2 years of economic and political turmoil. A variety of political groups were formed to tout him as a strong leader and urged him to seek the presidency. In March 2014, he resigned from the military to run for president later that year, in which he won and became Egypt's president. As head of state, Sisi has confronted a wave of terrorism, especially in Sinai, but he's managed, thanks to the armed forces and police, to rein in terrorists and stand against their foiled attempts to destabilize the country. President Sisi led an international war on terrorism in collaboration with many world countries, and thanks to such efforts, stabilization and security have been attained and realized not only in Egypt but on regional and international fronts.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, continuing our discussion with Dr. Roushdy. Doctor, now you've mentioned earlier the health sector and the educational sector. These two sectors were pretty high on the agenda and pretty high on the list of demands and hopes for the Egyptian citizens. The government and the presidency started working on it, and then a year and a half ago, almost a year and a half ago, the whole world was hit by the coronavirus pandemic, and then all of these sectors needed to have some sort of a makeshift, a real shift in terms of how to deal with the situation. Everyone now is learning online. Everyone now is taking their exams electronically. The health sector needed, they started working on modernizing the hospitals and really equipping them with all the modern machinery and enough medicine, but now they needed to make makeshift hospitals, needing to get more vaccines. It was a really critical time for those two sectors.
I believe that despite the fact the COVID-19 pandemic, we are doing on both sectors, education and health, we are doing a great job. As I told you, the education budget almost increased by 65%, and our behavior changed and our lifestyle for the education changed. As you mentioned, the majority of the education currently, which is online, this is a good opportunity to invest on the building new universities and expand and many things. And if we go for the health sector, eventually the health budget increased per capita, which is almost double. For that reason, despite the fact the COVID-19 pandemic, this is a greater challenge. For that reason, and I believe that it will, the new system for the new insurance system that will cover all people will be a new thing to us and will benefit the low income and the middle income people and the high income. All of the Egyptian nation will benefit from this. And in my humble opinion, I believe that if you would like to build a country, you have to focus on two things: the education and the health. Those are the most crucial things to build a country. And I believe we are in our way to build a new republic.
Yes. Well, Dr. Roushdy, now, one of the main things, the assets of every country, the assets are the people, mainly. And the presidency really looked to empower many sectors in society. Started off with the youth, really empowering them, giving them job opportunities, getting them jobs, helping them start their own business, startups, entrepreneurs, also putting them in leading positions within the government and the institutions. Also empowering women, having a year for the woman, putting them, enabling them and empowering them in leading governmental positions. Also, and obviously dealing with the family issues, domestic violence. Also, very importantly, the presidency and the government really focused on citizens with special needs, really trying to facilitate all of the lifestyle for them, allowing them to really enjoy and raise the standard of living and having them enjoy all the rightful rights that they deserve. How far do you feel the presidency has achieved in terms of really raising the living standards for all sectors of society?
Actually, as you mentioned, the manpower or people are the most, in my humble opinion, are the most important thing to any country or to any organization. Actually, the real fortune for Egypt, it's the people. If you would like to invest in people by enhancing the education level and enhancing the health. And this will reflect on everything, to change the mindset, to change the lifestyle, on everything. Actually, Egypt and the majority of the developing country are potential country. Let me show you and the audience just the pyramid of our nation. Actually, we have around 60% of our nation are youth. And this is what the leadership of Egypt is working on it, to empower the youth, and the women. If you will empower the youth and the women, you will make a dramatic change to the country. How they are empowering the youth currently? They are playing with business incubators, supporting startups, the SMEs, small and medium enterprises, supporting and financing them. Despite the fact the government, with coordination with the Central Bank of Egypt, they did many initiatives for that. They are financing the small projects, the startups with low interest rate, and they are incentivizing the banks to do that. They are waiving part of the CBE reserve, the cash reserve, to encourage the banks to lend and facilitate lending for the youth. By this way, we are building a new country.
Well, Dr. Roushdy, we have to speak also about the political efforts, the political achievements. Now, over the past 7 years, we've seen Egypt obtaining an unpermanent seat at the UN Security Council, assuming the presidency of the African Union, being involved in many regional crises, be it Syria, be it Libya, the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. We've seen the Egyptian diplomacy deal with Russia, Turkey, Qatar, the US, all of these countries really strengthening their relations with Asia as well, really strengthening the relations with the rest of the African continents, the whole continent. How far, and obviously still dealing with the Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, how far would you evaluate the strategy and the dynamics of the Egyptian foreign policy, the political leadership, and how to really juggle all these issues all at the same time and trying to stay on top, reclaiming Egypt's pivotal regional and international role?
Let me state facts concerning the foreign affairs. Actually, since President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi took office, Egypt showed keenness to establish balanced relations with all countries of the world, east, west, north, south. Egypt also strengthened deep ties with many countries, whether with sisterly Arab and African countries or with major powers led by the United States, Europe, and Japan, in addition to openness to other powers such as Russia and China. And what you said with the harvest of that concerning the foreign affairs, which we obtained a non-permanent seat in the United Nations Security Council, and assuming chairmanship of the United Nations Security Council, assuming chairmanship of the Arab Summit, and membership of the African Peace and Security Council, assuming also chairmanship of the African Summit, and the membership of the African Peace and Security Council. We did many things on the foreign affairs, and this has led Egypt actually to have its proper place and to be one of the most influential countries in the Middle East.
Yes. Well, Dr. Roushdy, we're running out of time, but we've been talking about the achievements over the past 7 years. But what would you want to see more of? What sort of achievements do you feel we still want to see? We still want to realize, dreams there to realize, hopes to aspire to, achievements to enjoy. What do you feel we should be expecting and waiting for in the future?
Actually, what happened the last 7 years let us raising the bar a little bit.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Actually, I would like to see the country, the mindset of our people change a little bit in terms of many things. One of my dreams to go to have the digital transformation. Actually, this is the new era. This is the new world. Let me say the new world.
Yes.
And to focus on financial inclusion. This will impact the country and our GDP, and everything will be controlled and monitored. In addition to, it will help the economy to grow faster and faster. As I told previously in the last episode, the majority of our economy was a gray economy. If we did that, it will be mingling with the normal economy, and it will be effective. I hope one day to see a ministry for financial inclusion to manage those things with coordination with all
the ministries.
Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is a hopeful note, today we are celebrating the 7th anniversary of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi assuming the office as head of state. A lot has been achieved over the past 7 years, but still Egyptians want and hope for a lot more. And as Dr. Roushdy mentioned, the past 7 years, they really raised the bar for what all Egyptians are hoping for. There are still many achievements in different sectors that we didn't have enough time to talk about. The tourism sector, the cultural heritage of Egypt, the arts, the film, the dramas, the theater, a lot of achievements that took place. But as the president himself has mentioned, it is not just the government and the political will that is driving this, but it is also the will of the Egyptian people, which is really the driving force for all of these achievements in the past and hopefully the future achievements in the very near and far future. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this edition of the Daily Debate. But before we go, I'd like to thank my very distinguished guest, Dr. Mahmoud Roushdy, the banking expert and the lecturer at Cairo University. Dr. Roushdy, always a pleasure having you with us.
Thank you, and thanks for our audience, and have a nice evening for you and our audience.
Thank you very much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned for more coming up on Nile International. I'm Hani Saif. Thank you for joining us.